welcome to Fail Forward, the podcast about the failures that made success possible. Here we talk to entrepreneurs, leaders, and change makers about the moments when things didn't go to plan, the doubts, the failures, and the hard lessons that shaped their journeys. Success isn't just about what we see on the outside, it's about resilience, persistence, and learning when the odds are against you. Today, I am joined by a remarkable guest whose career spanned business, community, leadership, and global impact. He built ventures that are not just profitable, but purposeful. And he faced those critical moments where the path forward wasn't clear, but pushed through anyway. So let's get into it. It's my pleasure to introduce my first guest, Mahmoud Shahnawaz. Welcome, Mahmoud.
Thank you.
Mahmoud is a man who wears many hats: entrepreneur, social impact advocate, and Islamic scholar in training. He is best known as the founder and director of the Utilize project, a non-profit that takes abandoned or underused buildings and breathes new life into them by turning them into spaces for community benefit. But Mahmoud's entrepreneurial streak doesn't stop there. He is also behind Momlet, a creative venture bringing fresh ideas into the food world, and Fortis Developments, a property development company with a focus on building responsibly and with purpose. Alongside his businesses, he serves as a board advisor at the National Zakat Foundation, and he is currently pursuing his IFTA specialization after completing the Shahada Alimiya. With an executive MBA from the University of Cambridge, Mahmoud brings together strategic expertise, spiritual depth, and passion for mentoring entrepreneurs. His journey is about more than profit. It's about proving that businesses and ethics can be woven together to create lasting, meaningful impact. So, that was brief introduction, Mahmoud, but I'm sure you have much more to say than what I just read about you. Can you tell us, what sparked your first interest into business? What was your first business and how did that start?
I think what was always got me into the concept of having a business is I was a very peculiar type of student. I was naturally quite good at academics, but I just couldn't get focused. I think now, if I was in schooling, I probably would be diagnosed with one of those isms. So I just wasn't able to focus. And I remember at the GCSE time, I asked, what do I need to get in order to do A-levels? And they said, you need 5 A to C's. So I made sure I got 5 C's. And that's what got me into my A-levels. And then I scraped those. And so it was very minimalistic approach to education. But then in the middle, at one point, I had a NEET period. Do you know what NEET is? It means not in education, employment, or training. Yeah. And I realized at one point that the depression that I was feeling at that point wasn't as a result of some mental health crisis. It was just a natural outcome of the choices that I had made in life, which was to basically mess about, not focus, and basically really just mess up everything. So I was in that period of my life, and I think that was like a turning point moment where I said to myself, nah, I need to do something. So I was a late returnee to education and started focusing on studying. And I realized I really enjoyed it. Funnily enough, I realized I've got a knack for it. I've got a very academic approach to things as well, naturally. So everything really just clicked at that point. So, and there's this saying, they say education is wasted on the young. I genuinely believe that. I think if they saved all of that education for once I was 18 plus, I would have done much better. So after all of that, failing in education and failing at my schooling, I went back into education and got some qualifications. And after a brief stint working, I realized that I didn't really want to be just a cog in a machine and surrounded by what can only be described as careerists and people who are running a machine that they don't understand for people who they will never meet, for purposes that they don't understand and don't even care about understanding. So at that point, I just realized I'm not really part of this group. I need to be doing my own thing. So that's when I first ventured out and started doing some small bits and bobs. The first part of it was a marketing venture, marketing company focusing on helping Muslims reach their audiences. And then that was mediocre, very mediocre. Didn't go many places, eventually closed it down. And then while working full time, I actually got so good at my work, I was able to spend about 5 days on the side, on doing my own projects. And this side hustle turned into a tech food business, where it's called Dinner Share. We were helping food influencers on Instagram sell their food for delivery and with a payment process, because I realized, like, my sisters, my family members, they're going and picking up cupcakes and samosas from some lady down the road that they saw on Instagram who's got 50,000 followers, and paying cash. I realized that's not a very safe way to do business. So I thought, let me give these people who have got 50,000 followers, 100,000 followers, maybe 1 million followers, a platform where they can sell their wares, what they have a lot of passion for, through a safe means, and that became Dinner Share. Eventually, it got to a point where we wanted to sell it, and we exited from that business. And then after that, the money that I had for that, I put it into my education and started my MBA. And then during my MBA, one of the projects that I was working on became what we now have as the Utilize project.
Okay, amazing. I will come back with some questions about these experiences. But can we go a little bit back? Like, usually when we speak about successful businessmen, usually people think that they have like background, they have rich families behind them to support them, to help them on this path. Like, how is your experience? Like, was your family from that kind of background? Were they able to support you, or you did it yourself?
So my dad was a cab driver, and my mum was a stay-at-home mum. So they didn't have the professional backgrounds to be able to help me. Obviously, their du'as is the main thing that drove me, and their encouragement that drove me. We didn't have a lot of money. I grew up in council housing, or had stints of homelessness as well as a family. So but I know that exists, and I don't think that should be looked down on just because your parents have been successful. It doesn't mean that your success is any less. But those who come from backgrounds similar to mine, obviously we had to learn in a different way. We weren't given any mentors. So I was recently mentoring one young guy, and he was really happy that he got to see me. And I just thought to myself, I don't know why he's happy, but I thought to myself, I remembered, I had to go back and think why he could be happy. And I remembered at his stage, I would have loved to have someone give me some of the tips that I was able to give him that day. So right now, I want to be that person for those guys that I needed when I was coming up. But yeah, I didn't have that background. I didn't have that support structure, but my mum and dad were always very, very encouraging of me, and they always believed me. I was the eldest in the family, so if I said, I'm going to do this, I never had blowback, or I never had someone trying to talk me out of it. They were always very encouraging, said, okay, try it.
Okay. So you said you never had like mentors, like officially, like only support of your family. Is there someone else, like not only in the beginning, but like through your like career, that you like see as your mentor, or someone who was role model you were following, or who really helped you shape your vision as it is today?
Yeah. So in the beginning, like I said, I had no connections to people success. I remember the first time I met someone around my age who was doing medicine, and I felt really inspired by that guy, because all of my friends groups were in trouble one way or another, in some sort of crisis, so they weren't really in education or anything fruitful. So at the early stage there wasn't, and the thing that I was most inspired by and led on by was historic figures. I would look back in history and find inspiration from the likes of, like, if I can name a few names, obviously the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ was a big thing. You saw through that, you need grit. You need to have the ability to face challenges and just say, okay, it's here. I know I have my Allah. I know that there's another side and there's something after this particular challenge. Let's do it. So you just go forward with that tawakkul, and that's what you get from the seerah. And another historic figure, probably not in the business world, but just the fact that he was able to achieve what he did in inspiring and bringing people together. It was someone called Nuruddin Zenki, a Turkish sultan of great renown, probably the greatest king in the Muslim world. So that was a stage where I had to look into history to get inspiration. And then after like first bits of work and first meeting people, and one of the best ways I found of people, if you're coming from backgrounds like mine where you're growing up in not very like good environments and your friends groups aren't very good either, and your parents are well-meaning but unable to connect you up with anyway, one of the best things that you can do is go and volunteer. Volunteer in Islamic organizations, volunteer in, if you can, non-Islamic organizations. My in was Islamic organizations, so I went and started volunteering for all the charities. And through that, I ended up meeting so many wicked people that right now are my mentors as well. So my first mentor that I met through my first bit of volunteering was someone called Azim Kidwai. He was instrumental in basically making me think big and making me realize that, you know, certain things that I think I can't do, I can actually do. So that's very important. That's a good in, because, like, for instance, I was reading the autobiography for David Cameron. Silver spoon in his mouth, all the connections he needs. When he was on his break between his A-levels, his dad sent him to ITN to go and do an internship for free. He could do that. People from our backgrounds can't do that. So what do? We can do something similar. We get ajr from it. Go volunteer in an Islamic charity. You'll meet awesome people. You'll meet, obviously there's going to be some potential of meeting weirdos as well. That happens as well. But that's one of the, for me, a roadmap to finding right people, and also attend courses, because I was attending a lot of Islamic courses as well, and I ended up meeting, like I said, dentists, doctors, people with much more celebrated educational backgrounds and employment backgrounds than I had ever seen previously or had experience of interacting with. So that was my first way of finding people.
Yeah. So now, speaking about businesses, we know, like, we start businesses, we close them. Not every business is successful. Sometimes we just go into something else. Was there any moment in your career when you thought you will not make it? When it was like really, really hard and you thought, like, why did you go into that kind of job, like that kind of career, or you always knew actually what you wanted to do?
So there was a time when I would wonder if there is like light at the end of the tunnel. But one thing I didn't mention was that I was very into, remember I said I discovered education late in life, and I discovered Islamic education late in life as well, 18 plus, and I got really like into it and took my studies very seriously. And through that I learned, so prior to that I had a type of thinking which was, you know, full of anxiety, full of self-doubt, blah, 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 all that stuff. But through the study of the Sunnah, of the Quran, I came to realize that we have one concept that trumps all anxieties, all potential doubts that you can have, and that's tawakkul. Yeah, and I fully, not fully, I don't want to praise myself like that, but I grasped that concept and held those concepts as rules of thumb. If I ever felt a bit of wavering in me, I would know that I just need to put my trust in Allah and go forward with courage. And those are the things that my parents taught me as well, and it just became more embedded the more I learned. There was a period where I told you that neat period, I was more or less racked with that type of feeling. And then after that, when I went into studying the concepts and that are most serious in Islam and most central to Islam, they fade away. You can't be aware of the concept that Allah is watching over you, Allah is with me, Allahu Shahidi, Allah sees me. And then also at the same time have, you know, what if this, what if, no. We see what's happening, we judge by what the reality in front of us, and we make plans and we adjust as we go along. And that's what is perfect for startup culture as well. There's a difference between professional culture and startup culture. Startup is, you can't go into a startup not trying to lose, not trying to fail. You have to go in trying to win. Yeah? The difference between professional culture in a big corporate is you're trying not to fail. You're trying not to break something that's already been built. But with a startup mindset, a startup CEO, a startup founder, they can't operate in that way. That's why a lot of people fail to adjust from a big corporate to a startup, because they think all I need to do is not break things. No, you need to break things and win things and go and chase after goals and not expect, okay, as I am until I leave this post. It's not going to work. So that is obviously what I said about the culture, but that comes intrinsic and easily, I think, to someone who knows that what the ideas of Islam are and the concepts that come with learning more about from the Sunnah.
Yeah, with this startup culture comes a lot of pressure, I suppose, as well, like from the community, from family, from everyone around you. How, except with faith, obviously, like how did you cope with that, like pressure? Is there something like in your lifestyle that you did and that really helped you, like to stay on the right path?
I think in those formative years for me, I was hyper focused. I mean, to the point of probably some type of autism, where I wasn't distracted by much. I was a very big gamer at one point. I was very into music. I was into fashion. When I focused on those goals of mine, learning Islam, getting some education, career, business, those kind of things, they became my focuses. They became my hobbies even. So in my free time, I would be reading. In my free time, I would be studying. On my weekends, I'll be attending courses. So there are people like that. They just need to become what they call now locked in. And I became locked in at the age of about 18, 19 onwards. And it's because my failure prior to that was just so spectacular that after that, I was like, okay, I need to recover from this. So the pressures weren't, they clearly were, because I remember one time I was driving home it was on a Sunday, and I was attending my Alimiya course. And it was after maybe, that course runs about 12 hours in a day. And I saw one of my friends, he was on the bike, and I stopped and he said, where are you coming from? I said, I'm coming from my course. And he said, how often do you do that? I said, every Sunday. And he said, are you working? I said, yeah. He said, are you still running your business as well? I said, yeah. And he asked me, how are you doing all of this? I said, I'm just doing. You do whatever's in front of you. I think this whole thing about estimating how hard something is, a lot of that is really, it's preliminary and things that you feel before you do something. When you're in the mix of it and you're doing it, you adapt and you normalize it. So being busy, you become normal. You still find time to have your holidays and your breaks and whatnot. I never felt exhausted from it, but it really does come down to mindset. If you can get your mind to say, well, this is the job, this is the work to be done, come what may, it will be done.
Okay, so looking back now, when you through all of that what you went through, like, is there something you would absolutely do the same, like business-wise, like something that you are so proud of how you did it, like that you would do it the same, and what would that be?
Yeah, I'll always just take on a challenge, irrespective of if I have the tools there and then or not. One thing I realized is you have to start where you stand. Even if you don't have all the tools available for you at that point. As you go along in that journey, you will find tools. When you know that you need X, Y, and Z, that's when you start looking for it and you find it. Expecting everything all the stars to align, all the ducks to be in a row before you take a task on, you can't really land the opportunities, and you need to be opportunity orientated as well. So I was two things: opportunity orientated. So I was looking always on the look. Like I had antennas out, always like, okay, what's there? And if someone offered me something that interested me, even if it seemed daunting, or even to the point that even if I didn't have experience in it, I'll say, okay, I'll find out a way to do it afterwards. So I wouldn't ever undo that and I will do that even now. If someone gives me a project to work on now, like an art gallery, this one, I'm like, all right, let's do it. Mudassir came to me, you want to do it? I said, all right, let's see how it goes.
Amazing. And what is from the other side, what is one thing you would never repeat?
One thing I'll never repeat. One thing I'll never repeat.
Something that you consider as really mistake that you have done.
Yeah, this is a difficult question because my mind is specialist at deleting things that I don't want to remember. So if you give me just a moment, I should be able to give you something.
We have a moment.
I probably would not have spent as long as I did in employment because I got somewhat comfortable with that regular paycheck. If I know now, if I knew then what I know now, I would have kept that to a very bare minimum to keep my back straight, to keep the lights in the house on, to keep the food on the table. And then as soon as I got the opportunities that I had at that time, so I became a very good juggler. I had a full-time job and I was like launching and expanding my business. I should have put that to a side and then, so that I wouldn't repeat.
Can we connect that to the advice you would give your younger self?
Absolutely, yeah, 100%. Because one thing I learned was you take the opportunity with both hands. You got to take the bull by the horn, and not keep your boats tied to the shore. You're not going to get very far.
Okay, so we mentioned just a few moments ago Kismet Café. Together with Mudassir Ahmed, you are one of the owners of this place. How did you come to that idea, and what made you actually go into that business?
What made me go into it? My hatred of modern art, probably, because I don't know if you guys recognize what modern art is. It is like a billionaire, yeah? He pays his taxes. He commissions a artist, pays him 25K to do a line on a canvas, yeah? Vroom, vroom, there. And then he brings his friend afterwards, an appraiser, to say, how much is that? And his friend says it's 25 million. He then donates that 25 million art to a charity or an art gallery and gets a tax write-off of 25 million. He saves on 25 million pounds worth of tax, yeah? And then little old me goes into the Tate Modern. I look at the art and I say, what is this trash? What is this? And an arty-farty guy next to me looks at me and says, you just don't understand modern art. And I said, I don't need to understand that. This is nonsense. There's real art in the world. And we need to make sure that we bring back real art because, so in my heart of hearts, I know art has a genuine value in the world that Allah has created. It brings aesthetics and it brings color to otherwise black and white world, yeah? And through the art, I've said this time and time again, culture is formed, minds are formed, and worldviews are changed through art. And I mean art in the more broader sense, not just canvas. So when I know what's happened with the destruction of art through modernism, and I know that we as a Muslim community have had a illustrious history of art. I knew that A, we need to put our feet back into that arena, and B, it needs to be at the same time pulling the rug from under the feet of this modern degeneracy that we have now been told that is art that we don't understand.
Okay, now we mentioned, let's say, all your businesses you are currently in. Which one are you the proudest of? Like either businesses you are not anymore in or you are currently in?
I think I'm really proud of my first limited company that I formed, which was a marketing agency that helped Muslim companies reach Muslims. it was just at that time there wasn't really a methodology fully fleshed out on how to market and advertise to Muslims. And I remember I became like a hyper specialist overnight on how to do that. And through that, I actually got a lot of employment offers. I got a lot of experience in large advertising companies and so on and so forth. And yeah, it was just something. And I did it like sitting on my desk, and I learned everything doing research. So that's something I'm quite proud of. But it did dwindle at one point. But that's just the nature of the beast.
Okay, so another question I wanted to ask you, like about the role of your family in your business life, in your career, like how important that is. Like you are 39, you are married, you have 3 kids, right? So how are you juggling all these businesses and all the things you need to do during the day with your family life?
So I got married quite early, 24, and I married. She's here as well. The right person as well, so that helped, and that's how I managed to juggle, because we essentially took on fairly traditional roles. I said, okay, let me go out there, try and conquer the world, and you know, I can expect, and she said, you can expect you to come home to a peaceful place, and that's really how, to be honest. We didn't try and reinvent any wheels. We just went by the formulas that our mums and dads showed us, and we kept it simple like that. And I think marrying early was very good for me. It grounded me. It made me more motivated, knowing that I have responsibility for more than just myself. Through that relationship, I also met new people who put me in touch with more new people. So it's like an expansion of network as well when that happens. But yeah, children right now, they are the fuel for my fire. They give me a lot of inspiration. They'll ask me questions even now that makes me ponder about something in a way that I didn't previously. One thing that happens when you have kids is the whole world changes. The paradigm completely shifts. It's like you were looking at the world from one angle, and then you have a child, and then it just expands. It goes from like SD to Super H, 4K, 8K, HD. And you're like, I see a lot more details in the world that I didn't see previously. And everything just looks different. And you have a different approach to the same problems even.
Amazing. With this, I would open
Sure.
To the audience to ask questions. If you have any question for Mahmoud. Yes, we'll just give you a microphone. So.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for sharing that with us. It's really insightful. I had a few questions. So the first one was, so you had a family quite young, and you were making decisions that were quite risky. Setting up new business is quite risky. How did you balance that with like having to feed the family and any sort of worries, maybe from wider family members about just taking the safe route? And then that's one question. And then the other question was this company called Utilize. Mm-hmm. You're using unused spaces and giving them a new purpose. If you could talk a bit more about that, I'd be interested. Yeah.
Okay, so the way I managed to do what I did while having a family was I took mitigated risks. The risks, I was never, my story isn't like, I don't know, Mark Zuckerberg, who dropped out of university and then became like a billionaire, and he didn't have like any other connections to anything else that would work or otherwise. No, I finished my education. I went into a full-time job. I made sure I became exceptionally good at my work, such that, I mean, sometimes I would finish 1 week's work by Tuesday. So I basically was a side hustler. So I'd make sure that my full-time work is being done, and I'm excelling at that, to the point that I was winning awards, internal awards, and even national awards. But at the same time, I knew that this isn't where I need to be and where I want to be. And so that side hustle element was always part of my approach. That's how I mitigated the risks of entrepreneurship, while also making sure that there's food on the table and the lights are coming on. So that's an approach that I generally do advise to people. I know now, especially American startup culture, it's always about, you cut off all connections to any security that you have and basically go out on a limb. Sure, that's one way of doing it, but a lot of that is overly romanticized. When Mark Zuckerberg did it, he already had a number of different support structures in place. He didn't go out on a limb and potentially go homeless as a result. No, it was already a setup, a very cushy environment, and a lot of these are exactly the same way. So that don't get duped by that overly romanticized concept of going into entrepreneurship, throwing everything else in the bin. It doesn't really have to be that. You can go and take risks while also mitigating for those risks that save the negative elements of that from your family and yourself. And the second question was about the Utilized project. That was a project, it literally started off as just a project, then it became a company, where I essentially was after, it was just during the COVID period, there was a lot of empty offices, empty buildings, and the assumption was we were never going to use buildings again, everything's going to be online, blah, blah, blah. I just didn't buy it. I thought, it's nonsense. Let me approach some of these landlords who are really, really worried about their buildings being forever empty and being lumbered with this big asset. And having an empty property is not cheap. It actually costs a lot of money. So I approached a number of them and said, what are you going to do? Leave it empty or give it to me at a very good price for me, not you. And he said, and they all basically said, yeah, take it from me. And so I used that opportunity to go into very favorable situations where and business deals where I had a lot of commercial property that was underutilized or empty, and we managed to fill it up with startups, charities, art galleries, all sorts. And we've expanded from 1 building, 2 building, 3 building, from just one area, Canary Wharf, to much wider now. We're London wide now. We have 8+ buildings. So yeah, that's how the Utilized project started, and the whole ethos is letting no space go to waste. You wouldn't believe how much empty buildings, plush, lovely buildings there are in London. One of the most overly congested places on earth, and it's full of empty buildings. There's a whole raft of reasons why that's the case, but we found a methodology to make it useful, the building, for the landlord, the community, for us, by employing the mechanisms that we do in the Utilized project.
Amazing. Are you happy with the answer? Any more questions? No questions. Okay, I have a set of 7 quick-fire closing questions. You have few seconds to answer each one of them. This will be a quick one. So, one word to describe success.
Connection with Allah.
The best piece of advice you have ever received.
Put your trust in Allah.
A book or research that changed the way you think.
This book called 7 Habits of Highly Effective People really changed the way I thought.
Your go-to habit or ritual that keeps you grounded.
There's basically holding fast to your adhkar.
What's one mistake that turned into your greatest lesson?
What again? What's the question?
What is one mistake that turned into your greatest lesson?
Going to school.
Okay, if you could give your younger self one message in 10 words or less, what would that be?
read, and have courage and go forward.
Okay, and the last one, since we are in Kismet Café, tea or coffee?
I'm a tea guy. Always.
Okay, thank you so much, Mahmoud, for being
Thank
the
you for having
guest
me.
of first episode of Fail Forward.
Thank you.
Okay, so thank you. Today we had privilege of hearing incredible journey from setbacks to doubts to breakthrough and success, but most importantly, the lessons that they learned along the way. Sorry, the light is too strong here. What Mahmoud has shown us is success is never a straight line. It's about resilience, about holding onto your values, and about finding ways to create impact beyond yourself. Whether that's transforming communities through business, rethinking how faith connects with our daily lives, or building networks that bring people together across the globe. A huge thank you, Mahmoud, for sharing not only your achievements, but your honesty and reflections as well. And thank you to our listeners for being part of this conversation. If you have been inspired today, be sure to follow his work and continue engaging with the ideas we have explored. Until the next time, keep learning, keep building, and keep striving.